Everybody is entitled to their own priors, but not to their likelihoods. I think this is probably the most important message that I got from ICRA 25. I'm here in Atlanta, ICRA 25, Robotics and Automation Conference. It's an academic conference, so lots of academics, industry, investors. So what do I mean with everybody's entitled to their own priors, but not their own likelihoods? That means that you can have your own biased view of things. That's fine. We are humans. But then as a scientist, engineer, business person, you got to follow the data and you got to do what the data tell you. So you can't keep your priors as a conclusion. And this is pretty prevalent at this conference, in particular when it comes to the question of to bitter pill or not to bitter pill. So should we trust AI systems to learn from data and neural nets and as little priors as possible, or should we put in guardrails and priors? This is probably the biggest question. There's a couple of other things, but as a first episode from ICRA, I think this is the key question. So, do we have foundation models that are trained sort of in the realm of GPT, or do we have specific, task-specific, control theory-driven approaches towards robotics? And I think the answer on my side is, of course, we're going to go with the foundation model. Of course, we want to go general. Of course, we want to have all the compute possible and all the other advances such as reasoning and reinforcement learning in order to get to fully intelligent AI systems. But there is this big controversy. I had a conversation with several researchers about this, and every time I mention something like fully data-driven, reinforcement learning-driven learning, they come up with safety, they come up with control theory, they come up with guardrails, and I think one doesn't exclude the other. But again, you're entitled to your own priors, but not to your own likelihoods. This is not even a podcast. It's May 21st, 2025. This is Krim Delco. For the year, we are down 13%. The market's up 1%. We're underperforming by 14%. So I think the biggest takeaway from ICRA 25, in my opinion, is the question, can we build foundation models that are fully data-driven and general, and then extract robotic intelligence from there through reasoning and reinforcement learning? Is that the path to go? Or do we need to embed our robots with lots of control and safety guardrails and priors? And I think my answer to that is we want to go as general as possible. In fact, what we want to do is we want to build reinforcement learning environments where the robots can develop their own optimal trajectories, given priors which are based on general pre-trained models. So we're very much in line with, let's say, what physical intelligence is doing, what some of the foundation model people are doing, particularly physical intelligence, which is a company that is, a couple of people, mainly Berkeley and Stanford people, but it's not just them. So this is the way where we stand. And I think just recently, also Elon Musk gave an interview, which I think is key. By the way, all the links are in the show notes. So he spoke about how Optimus is trained on teleoperation as a prior, and then self-play reinforcement learning to go forward from there. And I think that's a big news to me, because it shows that Tesla is fully on board with self-play, reinforcement learning, and as little priors as possible. So they're following the GPT approach. I think, of course, Tesla, with Musk at the helm and with Grok in his back pocket, if you will, he is inspired by this type of approach, and I think we believe this is the right approach. So this is what I think ICRA is now battling with here. There's a lot of traditional control people. For example, I met a researcher just this morning, a bio-inspired researcher who works on potential flight drone type robots, and he looks at the way they flip the wings and flap the wings and all that stuff, and he spoke about reward functions. Reward functions are really the new programming language of robotics, because RL is going to be the big RL is going to be the solution to robotics. I mean, whether it's RL in the current form or some future form, which is a mix of pre-trained reasoning and traditional RL, that remains open. But I think we've seen what David Scaramuzza was doing with the robot, with the drone racings, RL, AlphaGo Zero, of course. All of these examples have shown us that we can get the furthest with RL. Now, of course, having a generalized robot that can work in factories and home environments requires a lot more pre-training, a lot more fine-tuning, and some safety guardrails, because the environment is much, much more general and messy. But nevertheless, I think that's the great insight here that the robotics community is struggling with. I think the West Coast, once again, is way ahead of most other people. This is a cultural thing, right? You have to embrace the idea that everybody's entitled to their own priors, but not to their likelihood. So let's work with the likelihoods. Let's evolve the likelihoods such that we have the best solution. It looks like the best likelihood will be the one where we have fully generalized robots that then can be fine-tuned through reasoning and reinforcement learning. That gets us to the question of how are we going to do this? And the answer lies in NVIDIA and companies like NVIDIA that will give us the AI tools that we need. We need compute time, we need data storage, we need memory. RL will generate a lot of synthetic data, because all the mistakes that the RL engine, that the simulation engine is doing, will be, of course, part of the data set for future learnings. Also, we have to work on physics simulation, right? If we want to have embedded AI in the real world, we need physics simulation, so the sim to real transfer is not too hard. So again, I think as far as NVIDIA is concerned, of course, very well positioned for all of these problems that are coming to the embedded world. And as far as the application layer is concerned, that is, in my opinion, the key, that we can start building faster, iterative applications that can catch up with, or that can take advantage of Jensen's law, which is an acceleration of Moore's law. If we take Blackwell, which is 100x improvement on token per dollar, and then we take the reasoning models, which is another 100x, we have a 10,000x improvement in the next 2 years, most likely. And to keep pace, to keep advancing at that pace, we also need very gutsy entrepreneurs. And of course, Musk is the most gutsy of all, but it's not the only one. But because we can have an ecosystem of fully end-to-end trained, reinforcement learning driven robotics companies that take advantage of this type of compute. Like it's almost like you don't take advantage of this compute, you're going to be left behind. So it's not a question of whether you should or whether you shouldn't. You don't have a choice. If you don't do it, somebody else will do it, and that somebody else will most likely outperform you, because again, generalist robot training will outperform specific robot training. Foundation models are the key. Now, whether we have neurosymbolic priors or not, I think that's not such a big deal. I also believe in what Sergey Levin said recently at a University of Toronto conference, where he said, look, certain tasks require certain abstractions. So some tasks can be abstracted directly end-to-end from RGB images. Others might require some sort of neurosymbolic prior, like if I take, let's say myself, like when I do surfing, I really do end-to-end image in, action out. when I do math, I have neurosymbolic priors, and but maybe there's a way to do this also end to end. But we humans have evolved and built some higher abstraction of language, which is a higher abstraction, so it's easier to interact with people with language. So there are a lot of these abstraction layers that I believe are useful. But right now, where we stand, I think we are at the beginning of a revolution, a massive revolution of Jensen law-driven robotics, I think, which will require massive advancements in physics simulation, physics generation, and reinforcement learning. And as the new programming language of robotics, we see reward function design. Thank you.